Okay, everybody, hi, welcome to Zoom and our virtual campus tour, virtual tour of UPeace. My name is Ariela Fernandez. I am in charge of communications here at UPeace, and I'm joined by Dr. Uzma Rashid, who is a resident professor at the University for Peace. She is also the coordinator of our Gender and Peace Building program, and she is a fellow who specializes in religion and the intersection with culture and peace studies. And she will be delivering in a few minutes a talk on human rights and the intersectionality with gender. I just wanted to take the first 10 minutes to talk to you a little bit about the University for Peace so that you have a more general idea of what it is before Uzma gets started with her talk. And I will leave my email in the chat box in a few minutes so that you all can contact me if you have questions about specific programs or the university or the admissions process. So I'll try to be very brief. I just wanted to give you an overview of UPeace. Okay, so the University for Peace is one of the only academic institutions in the world that has the specific mandate of training or educating people, professionals, specifically in areas related to peace, the study of ironology. So we try to have a very holistic view of peace, and we try to tackle it from a lot of different angles, as you will see when we look at the programs that the university has to offer. The university was created in 1980. It was created by the General Assembly of the United Nations. And the particularity of UPeace is that it was created by the UN, and it is what we call an affiliated institution, but we have complete and total academic and financial independence. And the reason why that is important is because it allows us to look at the work of the UN and not only follow or adhere to what we consider is in line with what our programs teach, but it also allows us to be critical of the work being carried out by the United Nations. And I think that grants the university a very particular status and a very particular place in academia. The University for Peace is both a university and an international organization. In Costa Rica, we are international organization status, and we have, like I said, the mandate from the General Assembly that allows us to grant master's and doctoral degrees in all of these areas that are related to peace and conflict. So we have offices around the world. We have our headquarters here in Costa Rica, which we hope you will be able to come and visit at some point because it really is a wonderful campus. And we have offices, representation before the UN headquarters in New York. We have a small office in Honduras that we use to carry out some of our Spanish language programs. We have a small office in Colombia with the University of Santander. And we have officers and offices in Germany, in Geneva, Switzerland, in The Hague, Netherlands, in Belgrade, Serbia. We have a very specialized program in Italy with the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. And we have 3 programs in Africa. We have one in Somalia, one in Ethiopia, and we have a program, though not in office, in Uganda. We have a UPeace China Center in Beijing, and we have a very long-standing relationship with the Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines. So the university, again, was created by the General Assembly, and because it wasn't objected to at the time, it was considered a unanimous decision to establish the University for Peace. However, these 42 states that you see on the right-hand side took the extra step to adhere to the UPeace Charter, which means that they sent a letter to the United Nations saying that they specifically, ratified that international charter and wanted to be listed as signers of the UPeace Charter. As a benefit, the citizens and residents of these states get an automatic 30% scholarship to UPeace. So it's sort of the way that we are reciprocal with these states' adherence and extra support. Being a member state or being a signatory state does not mean that any of these states have any financial obligations. They get a benefit, and we consider them our strongest allies or our strongest proponents. So a few sort of quick facts about UPeace. We sort of wanted to put it all in one place so you guys can get an idea of, what UPeace sort of stands for and UPeace in a nutshell. We currently have more than 6,000 graduates from over 120 countries, and this is strictly with our master's and doctorate degrees. If we take into account our short courses, our online programs, our certificate programs, we probably are hitting closer to 8,000 graduates around the world. We have a very large campus. It consists of 303 hectares, of which maybe 1 or 2 are built upon, and the rest is a natural reserve. I know all of you are in Monteverde right now, so it's sort of like a mini Monteverde in our backyard. We have all sorts of animals, flora, fauna on our campus, and it actually operates like a national park, much like Monteverde does, where we can have people come from the outside and spend their weekends in our recreational park. That allows us to sort of spread the message of UPeace and have people be able to help us look after the reserve that we care for. We have, like I mentioned, 42 signatory states, 12 regional offices. Our programs are divided into 5 academic departments and 1 doctoral degree program. We have more than 14 joint academic programs with universities around the world, which means a lot of these programs either involve 2 academic degrees, one from UPeace and one from the other institution, or we do joint teaching, but the degree comes from the University for Peace. We have over 90 international faculty members. They are divided into our resident professors like Dr. Rashid, who are actually on campus in Costa Rica headquarters. And we have a very large number of what we call visiting professors. And the reason for that is because the primary focus of UPeace, unlike other academic institutions that also might teach in peace, conflict, ironology, is that we are very experiential. We have a very sort of experience-based approach. And so a lot of our professors are practitioners who are actually in the field doing the work that we are preparing students for. And so we like to bring them in every year. We have a lot of new professors every year and a lot of returning professors in order to teach from a practitioner perspective. Because again, we feel like one of the largest draws of UPeace is that they're actually learning from people in the field doing the work that they're going to then go on to do. So this is an overview of the built portion of our campus. It looks really large, but when you walk around the campus, you can tell that it's a very minuscule part of what the actual UPeace campus looks like. Why was UPeace born? I'm going to send out this presentation as well, so don't feel like you have to read the whole presentation. But the reason UPeace exists is because in the 1980s, if any of you know a little bit about Latin American history, the region was being plagued by civil war, especially Central America. There was, a lot of fighting going on. And Costa Rica did not participate in civil wars. Does anybody on the other side know why Costa Rica did not participate in the civil wars of the 80s?
Yes, they disbanded the army in 1948.
Can you say that louder?
They disbanded the army in 1948.
Nice. Exactly. So we had no army, so we couldn't participate in a war because we had nobody to send out to fight in it, right? So because we abolished our army exactly in 1948, we wanted to contribute, we wanted to participate, but we didn't have an army to participate with. So our very visionary creator, Rodrigo Carazo, who was then president, had this idea that the way that Costa Rica could contribute to the region and to peace was to create a higher education institution that was dedicated to the study of peace and why conflicts arise, how we can prevent them, how we can manage them, how we can resolve them. And so he went to the UN with an idea in 1978 to create a university for peace, because in his words, peace is created in the hearts and minds of men. We can say now in the hearts and minds of humans in general. But he went with this idea. It was very much visionary, new, and very different than what everybody else was promoting at the time. And very thankfully, he was very well received. And 2 years later, the General Assembly finally approved the creation of the University for Peace. In the beginning, UPeace was actually focused on the region, like I said. And so we only had 1 program, and it was all in Spanish. And so all of our students at the time, for at least the first 10 years, were all Latin American people studying a Spanish-speaking program. Actually, the former First Lady of Costa Rica, as well as the now ambassador of Guatemala to Costa Rica. We're among the first cohort of that program here in Costa Rica. In 2001, then UN Secretary General Kofi Annan came to visit the UP's campus in Costa Rica, and amazed by not only the campus but the type of students that he interacted with and encountered, and the professionals and the faculty members that were teaching. And he said, this needs to be taken to another level. We need this to reach a much wider audience, and English, at least at the time, was a much, wider spoken language than Spanish was. And so he said we have to get some English language programs in here. And so the university actually did sort of flip to the other side, and we then created our first 3 departments and switched to teaching only exclusively in English. So we created 3 of those departments are still at UP's today, but we have added some more, and I will get through those in a minute. I mentioned in the beginning that UP's is not just a university, it is an international organization. And the way that this plays out is that we do a lot of projects. We do a lot of both custom projects, and we do a lot of running of projects that other institutions are coming up with, but maybe don't have either the manpower or the logistical possibilities of carrying out. So we primarily work with, obviously, UN agencies, a lot of them. We have executed projects for all of these agencies. With UNESCO, we've worked on freedom of speech and journalist safety with IOM and the ILO. We have worked on a program for bringing refugees to Costa Rica and helping them transition into their final destination by having them at UP's and doing training programs for them, teaching them English and helping them learn skills for their resettlement, etc. And we also work with all of these organizations, and Dr. Rashid will tell you a little bit more about the work we've been carrying out recently with the World Jewish Congress and the Muslim World League and the Pope's University in the Vatican. But all of these organizations have also asked UP's to run different programs, be they scholarship programs to different training programs. So our academic offer is quite wide. We have now 5 departments plus our doctoral degree program. We have a department that focuses on environmental issues. It's our Department of Environment and Development. We have a Department of International Law. We have a Department of Peace and Conflict Studies. We have a Department of Regional Studies, which houses our Spanish language programs. And we have a Department of Distance Education. And like I said, our doctoral degree program has the 1 doctorate degree in philosophy in peace and conflict studies. I mentioned our joint academic programs, so you'll be able to look at all of these later and sort of delve more deeply into them if you'd like. All of this information is on our website. As you can see, we have joint programs and dual degree programs with a wide variety of universities in all countries and all continents. And this allows us not only to expand our mandate, but it allows a wider range of people to be able to access UP's programs. We are also, since 2019, a SDG 12 hub. The SDG hubs are granted by the United Nations Academic Impact, which is part of the UN, and it basically works with academic institutions on sort of being these educational centers for certain SDGs based on the work that they're doing and their practices. And so UP's has obviously always valued sustainability. We have solar panels on campus. We have eliminated the use of single-use plastic, and we have our own greenhouse that feeds our community at some points during the year when we have harvest. And so we really have tried to make a huge effort to make our impact or our carbon footprint as a university as small as possible. This is our contact information. Again, I'm going to share both the presentation and my personal email in the chat so that you can contact us if you have questions about programs, admissions, what UP's does, how you can get involved with UP's. And obviously, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them now. I just didn't want to take up too much of Dr. Rashid's time.
You can read that on the website because it's more.
Okay, so as I am about to hand the floor over to Dr. Uzma Rashid, like I said, Dr. Rashid is a faculty member, resident faculty member of the University for Peace, and she is the head of our Gender and Peace Building program at UPeace. Dr. Uzma has been with UPeace now for, I think, close to 5 years. Close to 5 years at UPeace. And she is specialized in a wide variety of areas that she can tell you a little bit more about. And she is going to be speaking to you today about gender and peace building. And she is originally from Pakistan. So I'm going to leave you with Dr. Rashid, and I'll be here if anybody needs anything. And please enjoy your conversation with her. Dr. Rashid, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Ariella, and thank you for the wonderful presentation on UPeace as well. If anyone has any questions, I'll also share my email address. Could we, by the way, any chance we could have the video from the other side as well? Because I have no idea who we're speaking to. Is a video possible at all? There it is. I can't hear you. No puedo escuchar.
Okay, I am
Okay.
Rocio. I am the tour guide of the group. Thank you so much for your time. But
Thank you.
I don't know how to turn the camera
Around.
around.
Okay. Maybe you can shift the way the laptop is, or but that's fine. If it's a problem, then don't worry about it. It's not. I just thought maybe there is a camera there.
Okay, the group is right here.
Oh, there you all are. Hi. See, it
Okay.
makes a difference. I love seeing you all. Now I feel better. I'm talking to
Okay.
actual people.
I'm
Okay.
going to turn around so she. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay, I think it's back.
No problem. Okay, I feel better having seen them already. So hello everyone. I'm happy to hear that you're all in Monteverde. I'm sure you're having a great time. And I almost feel bad taking up your lovely time, into this academic activity. But hopefully this will be useful. I won't drag on. I'll just start right away. So the topic I am focusing on, I was requested to talk about human rights, but since I focus a lot on queer rights and religious freedom as well, or the intersections of queerness, religion, culture, etc., I decided to focus my talk on LGBTQI plus rights and the right to religious freedom. And the question of, are these at odds? Is there a clash between these two kinds of rights, two realms of rights, and are they competing or not? And I'll continue talking more about these, but I wanted to start by talking about myself a little first, so you know me a little better. Who am I? Why am I focusing on this? How did I come to this? Here's a picture of mine that I think is cute enough to share. So I started from Pakistan. I was born and raised in Pakistan, which is, I have to tell people here, it's a country that's close to India, because a lot of people don't know Pakistan in this region, or don't know it well enough. So it is a country close to India, and I am from a city which is close to the coastal areas in Pakistan. So towards the south of it, right beside the ocean, is my home. I was born and raised there, and I spent all my life till I did my master's, a second master's, etc. This is a place which is called Frere Hall Park, and it's close to like 5 minutes of a walk from my house, a remnant of colonial times. We were colonized by the British. And so this is kind of a reflection also of how we grew up learning to speak English and trying to, excel at life through that. And that was my life. And then I went to a university which was a public sector university called the University of Karachi. And you can see from this picture that I chose of the outside space of the university that there's a Y missing in the name itself. And that's sort of emblematic as well of the kind of resources that we did not have. There's a military person standing right there as well. But in that public sector university, I learned all that I needed to be on my journey to come here. I did my master's in English literature and a second master's in applied linguistics as well. And in my research during that time, since that time, I focused on a lot on power and how it works, right? So my thesis in my literature degree was on 1984 by George Orwell, and I'm sure a lot of you must have read that novel. It's a dystopian novel about a dystopian world where this character, Winston Smith, is trying to understand his position and get a sense of himself and struggling to understand. And you can see on this poster, Big Brother is watching you. And my thesis was about the search, the quest for identity that Winston Smith is on. And I continued on that quest, and during my PhD at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County in the US, where I was a Fulbright scholar. So luckily I got that scholarship. Otherwise, I would never have had the money to actually go there. But there I was in an interdisciplinary program called Language, Literacy, and Culture. And I started diving deeper into issues of identity, issues of structural inequities related to gender, religion, etc. So my PhD research focused on American Muslim women and how their gendered religious identities were constructed in the context of Islamic schools in the US, because that's an area where, you know, we don't think about gender in relation to religion a lot of times. And I was curious about how that worked, what the politics of it was. And I continued in that direction after that as well. I worked in Pakistan for a long time after it, for 3 years, teaching a variety of students, about the sociology of religion, the sociology of gender. And to this day, I am more and more now involved in queer work in relation to the realm of religion. So right now, for example, I'm a CAICID fellow, which is a network of interfaith and intercultural scholars implementing different projects that are related to religion. So the project that I'm implementing right now here at UPeace is titled Removing Harm from Interfaith Dialogue Initiatives Towards the Inclusion of Gender and Sexual Diversity. So how do you make interfaith dialogue spaces or religious spaces in general as well more queer inclusive? That's the focus of my life right now, or one of the areas of interest that I have. So this is the context to who I am and why I'm interested in the topic that I'd be talking about today, and why I'm so passionate about it. I wanted that, you know, if I talk about one thing, this is something that I want you to be familiarized with. And I, because I'm not sure of what the profile of the students I'm speaking with is, maybe you're already much more familiar with it than I am. I'm not assuming anything. So I'd be happy to hear back from you as well at some point if you have any questions and thoughts. But I'll just start right now into this topic itself. So what are LGBTQ plus QI plus rights? I'm starting from the very basics again, because I'm not sure of the audience that I'm speaking with. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights that you might be familiar with is something that we think of when we're talking about rights, right? Like when we're talking about human rights, we're thinking of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That was actually, it came about, or it was drafted and agreed upon after World War II, when it was recognized that we need some sort of universal international agreement on what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what are the kind of protections that people need, that states need to agree on providing. And so everyone, all the states in the world are supposed to oblige to and follow and agree to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And part of those is LGBTQI plus rights. The core legal obligations of states with respect to protecting the human rights of LGBT people include obligations to protect individuals from homophobic and transphobic violence, prevent torture and cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, repeal laws criminalizing same-sex relations and transgender people, prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, and safeguard freedoms of expression, association, and peaceful assembly for LGBTI people. Now, we do know that this all looks very, glorious, amazing on paper in theory, but there are many issues in implementing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as well, and other treaties related to international law, right? We know that it's very difficult. There are many issues with having states comply with international standards such as these. Part of that is that many states do not agree to recognizing the humanity of queer folks, for example, right? Or there could be many other reasons as well. Part of the reasons that many states do not work towards gender equality as much as they should is also resource allocation. This is not considered an issue that is important enough to assign resources to. So this is still the realm that people need to think about, and it's out there. It's recognized as part of the International Declaration of Human Rights. But the other area, the other realm that I wanted to talk about is the right to freedom of religion, right? And what is that? The right to freedom of religion, belief, or worship is the right to choose what religion to follow and to worship without undue interference. This fundamental right is guaranteed by Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And freedom of religion or belief has many dimensions and intersects with other human rights as well, such as the right to freedom of expression or the right to life. And this is a theme that will keep emerging later on in the conversation as well, that these rights are not absolute in nature, right? They intersect with other rights, and they have multiple intersectionalities that need to be considered in their implementation, which is part of the reason why the implementation is tricky in nature as well. But the right to freedom of religion includes the freedom to adopt, change, or renounce a religion or belief, freedom from coercion. So not only are you free to adopt a religion, but you are also free to not be coerced or forced into following one. The right to manifest one's religion or belief, freedom to worship, places of worship, to have a place of worship, religious symbols, observance of holidays and days of rest, appointing clergy, teaching and disseminating materials, including missionary activity as well. The right of parents to ensure the religious and moral education of their children, registration, communication with individuals and communities on religious matters at the national and international level, establishment and maintenance of charitable and humanitarian institutions, soliciting, receiving funding, conscientious objection as well, which could intersect with the objection towards the existence of queer folks. I hope the birds are not being too loud. I have every evening Pecho Amarillos, these yellow-bellied birds visiting me. So it is their time and they are yelling outside. But so this is comprehensively, what the right to freedom of religion is. Everyone is entitled to this whole list of things, and it's a very long list that embodies a lot of things that could intersect with what I earlier mentioned to be LGBTQI plus rights as well, right? So how do these two intersect? What are the intersection? This is a news item from June 2023, so very recent, and this is not an isolated thing that happened. It's becoming far more common than we recognize, and people are recognizing this more and more. LGBTQ versus religion, how a gay guidance counselor's firing could affect millions of workers. So this is a news item about how in a school, in a Catholic school, this guidance counselor was fired because people found out that she was gay. And so this particular instance I've just chosen as an example. There are multiple more which are similar in nature. Groups supporting Fitzgerald, who was the person who was fired, say millions of employees, from nurses at religious hospitals to support staff at religious schools, could be denied anti-discrimination protection if courts continue to expand the scope of the ministerial exemption. Those protections cover far more than employees' sexual orientation, but also guard against discrimination on the basis of sex, race, and age. So we do know that many protections exist in different countries, such as the North American region, US, Canada, etc., including protections on race and including protections on gender and sexuality as well. But and those are what's at stake. But if you have a religious school, for example, we know that there's many Catholic schools, Islamic schools, the kind of Islamic school that I chose as a site for my PhD research. There are many religious institutions of that nature, and hospitals as well. A lot of hospitals exist that are rooted in or associated with a religious denomination, right? And part of those religious denominations is their belief also that queerness is unacceptable, that queerness is not compatible with the religious beliefs of the particular community. And the argument is that it is not in line with, if God has decreed this to be incorrect and unacceptable, then we are within our rights to denounce this and to not extend a work opportunity, a position, a service as well. There was a particular case of a bakery denying wedding cakes to queer couples, right? And multiple such instances where religious folks are more and more arguing that because we believe in a particular religion that denounces or does not accept the idea of queerness, we are in the right to deny services or to fire people or to not hire people on the grounds of religion being above, hierarchically above the need to recognize and serve queer communities. But religious entities also frame the debate in critical terms. Churches and religious schools say it would violate the Constitution if the government required them to hire employees who disagree with their beliefs. So religious institutions now are invoking their right to freedom of religion and arguing that we are free to express our religion the way we want to, because that is also a right that is guaranteed to us. So how can you force us to hire an employee whose existence is going counter to the very beliefs that we hold sacred, right? So this is the key. This is the essentially the argument that is there. But we still see more and more we are seeing examples of people being fired on the grounds that they're queer. Steph Lenz was sacked this year for being gay. It was perfectly legal. LGBTQ people who work at religious schools have no protection from anti-discrimination legislation, and they fear the federal religious discrimination bill is about to make things work. This is from the Sydney Morning Herald. So I've chosen some examples from different contexts, and you can see that in all these contexts, the same kind of thing is happening across the board. Of course, this would also vary region by region. The laws are different country by country, but more and more the laws are also shaping up in ways that would be even more oppressive in nature, right? We know that there is a trend towards right-wing extremism across the board, really. And that is very visible in this trend to thwarting queer freedoms as well. But just going back to the question again, LGBTQI plus rights and the right to religious freedom, are these at odds? And there's a lot of work done in it. And because I wanted to keep the presentation a little basic in nature, considering again that I wasn't sure of the nature of the audience I was going to speak with, this is a question that has many aspects and that can be talked about for a long time. This is just one example of a book, a whole book that is about religious freedom, LGBT rights, and the prospects for common ground. What are the different aspects of freedom of religion and being queer? How do they intersect? So freedom of religion, one UN expert had to come out and make this declaration, so to speak, saying freedom of religion or belief is not compatible with equality for not incompatible, sorry, with equality for LGBT persons. Madrigal Borlos, the independent expert on protection against violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, argued that religion or belief systems are often deliberately placed in antagonistic positions against the human rights of LGBT persons in social and political discourse. In some feeding the contention that there is an inherent conflict between them. In some cases, religious narratives have been deliberately used to justify violence and discrimination, often in defiance of the doctrine of those faiths and also beyond the scope of the freedom of religion or right to freedom of religion or belief. And this basically points to why one of the aspects of this debate, that there are people from within religious communities as well who are working more and more towards sharing alternative understandings or interpretations from within religious traditions, such as within Christianity, changing the way people understand the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? How that is instrumentalized against queer folks. That narrative is being reinterpreted and reshared in favor of queer folks. From within Islamic traditions as well, more and more queer scholars, queer religious or queer Muslim scholars are arguing that the story of Sodom needs to, which is, because Abrahamic traditions share the same stories, a lot of them, that needs to be understood as the story of basically rape, that is, it was, and not of consensual sexual relations between men. Which also, if that was the case, that should be considered okay within the realm of religious beliefs as well. So there's more people from within these traditions that are arguing for it. But apart from that, within the realm of international human rights law and the understandings that exist, uh, one of the things to consider is also that just because somebody is arguing that I believe in a particular religion, that does not sanction queerness and the existence of queer people, will not be considered justified in not recruiting or not hiring somebody, or firing someone or denying services to someone on the basis of their gender and sexuality. And part of this, many principles guide these decisions, and eventually it depends, it varies from case to case. One of the principles of international human rights law is that of proportionality, and so the action that you're taking and the basis of it and the process that you're following for it or for complying with your belief, is it proportionate to, and are the consequences of it proportionate to and acceptable enough given that belief. So if you're saying your belief, for example, is to be violent towards a particular person, can you just go ahead and be violent towards that person? Or would that intersect with another human right as well, which would be the right to be free of violence? Everyone is supposed to, it has the right to exist without being subjected to violence. Everyone has the right to not being subjected to hate speech as well, which is another realm of rights that intersects with the right to freedom of religion. Because can you argue that because of my beliefs in a particular religion, in a particular theology, I can be hateful towards a particular community? Because we do know that hate speech is also a whole other realm. So one important point to remember in this is that no rights are absolute. And just because you believe in something does not mean you would be able to discriminate on the basis of that belief. But that's just those are just some of the points to think about in relation to the right of freedom of religion and LGBTQI plus community. But more important than that to me right now is how can we contribute to justice at the intersections of LGBTQI plus rights and the right to freedom of religion. And now what is important to me is to think beyond rights and to think of responsibilities as well, which is the kind of work I'm involved in right now. So how do I educate communities that I'm working with in order for them to consider alternative interpretations from within their traditions, to understand their responsibility towards fellow humans, right? How do you exist in a way that is not subjecting other people around you and in the world to violence because of your beliefs? How do you understand your beliefs more consciously with the mindfulness of being just to other people? Because we know that all these religions, well, as much as they have been violent in practice as well, we know the genocidal tendencies that have been coming from or emanating from different religious traditions, even in the missionary work that has happened through these religious the strands of these religions. We also need to understand that a lot of the focus of these religions is on kindness, is on humanity, is on justice as well. Jesus, for example, is considered a social justice a warrior, right? Like, he was in his time fighting for social justice. And so one of the ideas that people need to focus on is how to mobilize communities to being more just, to being more conscious of the kind of violence they might be extending owing to their beliefs and values, how to reinterpret, how to reestablish and understand the relationship they have with what are considered sacred texts, or what are the canonical sources of information through different theological traditions. And so this is the kind of work that I think people need to be doing more. Of course, everyone has their own calling and their own area of life that they can contribute to. But I think whatever area of life you're in, and I'd love to hear from you after this as well, it is important to at least be mindful and know that no one should be able to just argue that they have the right to be bigots. Basically, I think a lot of times now people are getting away with just saying, this is what I believe, and it is what it is, and I let's agree to disagree, and I believe in this, and so what? You believe in something else, you have the right to believe what you want to believe, and I have the right to believe what I want to believe. But we need to be thinking about the consequences of whatever we're holding close to our hearts. How are we being violent even to people around us, within our family structures, within our areas of influence, within the friends groups that we are surrounded with? We need to be mindful of the kind of beliefs that we partake in. And so considering, I mean, and there are many conversations even about the redundancy of religion in this day and age, right? Should we even get rid of the idea of religion? And that's a whole conversation too. But eventually what it comes down to is that we will continue to have communities and millions of people who do believe in one religion or another. And so there will continue to be a need to work with these communities if we are to work towards any semblance of justice for different marginalized communities, be it communities marginalized on the basis of their race, ethnicity, or gender and sexuality. And all of these are interconnected. The rights of queer folks are not being thwarted in isolation. Racial injustice is also being systematized more and more as we speak. And so all of these rights are linked to each other, but we need to be mindful of how we're working towards them. And I will stop here now, and I'd love to hear from you. If you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to share with me. I'd be happy to learn of the work you've been engaged in. What has life kept you busy with? Thank you.
Anyone to ask?
Thank you. I was wondering.
Can you come here in front of her? Thank you.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, Dr. Rashid.
You too.
I was curious, have you, like, through the course of your career with the university and with your specialty that you're working through, have you noticed much of a change in the way that the UN operates? Because I know you guys are not completely affiliated with the UN, but
That's a good question. So I've always, I do critique the UN as well in my work, and I know a lot of people who work in this area do. So for example, even the work of UN Women, right, and a lot of the documentation exists in binary. So a lot of the language that you'd find the UN documentation in is often using binary language of just men and women, right? It doesn't use more gender inclusive language either. But more and more right now, we are seeing more use of gender inclusive language, more work towards, initially, of course, if you look at the different resolutions and whatnot, they first of all started with women's rights and the different kinds of rights that need to be ensured in the realm of women empowerment. And gradually over time now, they also recognize LGBTQI plus communities. There are treaties, there are resolutions that pass related to queer communities as well. One of the things that the UN also struggles with, I think, I mean, it's not a great sentence to say the UN struggles with, because it's a big network, right? And it does take a lot of the resources of the world as well to work on what it works on. But at the same time, it has its limitations still, right? Because the UN, for the implementation of whatever it proposes, depends on the member states, right? So many countries, if they do not agree with with what the UN is proposing, they would not implement it. And so if there's a conversation about queer rights, if Pakistan, for example, says, well, this is anti-Islam and we're not recognizing it, or even in the US, right now there's a very regressive trend, then what can the UN do? What is the enforceability of the resolutions that are being agreed on? So that is still a struggle. And I think in all my time, I'm seeing that continues, because the enforceability continues to be a problem. But at the same time, I know from also our students work with UN Women, UNHCR, IOM, other networks, and even they have been instrumental in bringing this kind of progress within the organization. So I have reports that my students have compiled with UN Women, etc., that now use more gender inclusive language, that are more mindful of working with queer communities as well. So if there's any humanitarian assistance work that's happening, how do you do more data collection that is inclusive of queer communities as well, without putting them at risk? So a lot more work is happening, but I think some of the things are consistent as well. Yes.
So it's not really binding, but people are buying into the idea. That's good to hear.
I mean, it is one, in the absence of any other international sort of platform where people would come together, it's still a platform that does insist on states agreeing to certain norms, right? And so even the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, that's something that pushes states to and is sort of an incentivization to states to do something about these things. So if it asks for 50% representation of women in your parliament, your Senate, etc., then the states, because a lot of the resources in these development networks are also sort of tied to whether or not you are complying with these international regulations, states are more motivated to work towards these. So there absolutely has been a movement, that cannot be denied. But at the same time, I was just pointing to what the limitations also are. But of course, like, I think part of why the states are kind of pushed into bringing in the agenda of queer inclusion or women's inclusion even is because there is the international pressure. Even if the enforceability, of course, is an issue, because how can the UN enforce? And of course, that's another conversation as well. What kind of enforceability then do we want, right? How much interference in sovereign states do we want by the UN or any other entity? Because we do know that even that has led to a lot of problems because of the breach of sovereignty that has happened many times, right? So yeah, I hope that makes sense.
It does. And I just wanted to say that this is my second international field study with Niagara College through Be World Ready. And so being able to interact with cultures that are quite different from our own, but then through the lens of the USDGs and speaking about our problems, they may be on a different level, but it's interesting to see how we're working on similar solutions, or maybe that's like we have different ideas, but they're still kind of within the same realm. It's just been a fantastic way to view other cultures and to really bring ideas home or try to further my career in those ways. So I appreciate
Thank you.
your.
And what programs are you all associated with?
It's a pretty widespread. There's a few of us that are studying environmental technician program. There's people in policing, human resources, auto mechanics. What am I
Oh,
missing?
wow.
Nursing,
Early childhood.
early childhood education. It's a very
Wow.
big. And then we have people from all over the world, from China, Brazil, from Syria. So it's quite a good
Oh
group.
my God, I love it.
But I'm gonna get off now because I think there's other people that have
Okay.
questions. Thank you, Dr. Rashid.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hello again.
Hi.
My question is, so earlier in other Ariela was mentioning that UBS was connection with different countries, right? She also have a university in like headquarters in Costa Rica. How is it like based on the rights and freedom of religion and LGBTQ? How does it pass the message to each like country or each university of to UBs?
How does it work? Can you repeat the last part?
Send the message like of their rights. How does it send the message?
Huh. I
Because
mean,
you,
basically, was that again?
because you guys send in the message, so I want to know how you guys send the message. Makes sense.
How we send a message to the other campuses that we have or the other connections with other universities, you mean? So in general, whichever organizations we work with, they have their own internal policies as well. So it could be private institutions, it could be a UN related body as well. If it's a UN related network, then they also comply with the same norms that we are complying with. I mean, the general UN norms and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, etc., is something that every organization or every state sort of complies with, right? And they are considered Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So it's not that UPeace is the one sort of imposing that message. It depends on the kind of collaboration we have, I guess, if that's what you mean. For example, Ariella was talking about the master's program in religion, culture, and peace studies that I coordinate as well. So that is in collaboration with Muslim World League, with the World Jewish Congress, and the Pontifical Latin University in Rome. And part of that that is a tricky thing. I think that's what you're thinking about, right?
Yeah, like how this.
So for that, we the masters we run, it does include all the same ideas that otherwise too in the university we propose or that we share. So for example, we do have a course that is about gender in relation to religion and culture, and I do teach that. So I do talk about queer rights within that course as well. I do talk about queer perspectives from within Judaism or within Protestantism or some sect of Islam, etc. We do talk about those. Those are not sanctioned because the program is supported by different organizations. Like, we can respect the cultural and religious sensitivities that different people are coming with, and at the same time forward ideas and engage in conversations, right? It's not about proving each other right or wrong. It's about, because students who are joining these programs are coming with the intention to learn. So it's never a thing of you are right and I'm right, or etc. It's about, for me, it's a thing of I want to share what the consequences of believing in a certain thing are, right? So if you was that
It's basically open yourself to learning, like
Yes, it does help that I present myself as a conservative looking, sort of Muslim looking person, and that helps in situating myself in a tradition and speaking to people kind of from within that realm and saying, I am all about God. I am all about this and that. And and yet, my understanding of a universal spirit, God, of a higher entity, higher being, does not mandate subjecting other people to violence. And I know that people from within other different religious traditions are also not believing in those things, thinking or knowing that they are subjecting others to violence. So it's about understanding how what you believe in can lead to experiences of violence and death and displacement for a lot of people. And a lot of times people just haven't thought about those things in that way, right? So it's just about having this conversation and sort of adding like a drop at the rock, and like gradually, once you have put a dent in it, over time, they will think about it. I wasn't born and raised in a very progressive setting, right? I took the time to learn. I was exposed to different things, thankfully, and you think about these things and you grow. So the idea is that students who are coming from perspectives that might be harmful will eventually understand the consequences holding those perspectives have on people, right? Looking at case studies of how trans people are subjected to violence in the process of migration, for example, will make you absolutely, if you look at the kind of torture that they have to go through at different points in the migration process, you will absolutely think multiple times before saying something queerphobic, because you know the consequences that would have on actual people in actual daily life, right? So that's how we work.
Yeah, because I study sociology with my program because I'm in custom border service. So we have to know how to treat people, how, like even a couple of my friends.
What service did you say?
So I study custom border service, like you work in the borders or immigrations. So you have to know about these stuff. So I do sociology as well in it, where we learn different type of things about people, about social issues, different
I love it.
aspects. So this mean I was asking about this question because I want to know about how the message is being sent.
This is how it's being sent, right? Like we have open conversations in the space of the classroom, and we talk about, if you believe that gender is just dichotomous, not dichotomous, but dimorphous, sort of a binary construct, is just a man and a woman, and it's a biological construct. How do you understand the way people are subjected to violence based on how you perceive them at the border, for example, right? If you are looking at a person and you're saying, well, I don't believe you are a woman, and you have to prove that, how does that work? What are the consequences of it?
Yeah, it's going to
But yeah, it's classroom conversations that change people.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I have
Thank
to
you so much. That was good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Dr. Rashid. I won't try to take up too much of your time, but in my previous profession, I'm a counselor by trade for men with addictions. So my question is, there's many people in the world who are forced to make a decision between their faith and their sexuality or their gender identity. Does the University for Peace have a program for counseling, therapy, sharing resources for people in that position? And on that note, is there work or legislation to provide that service as a medical necessity to be covered by insurance, like a mental health crisis would be, for example?
I love it. You all have such good questions. I'm just here for the questions right now. So that's a lot of aspects in it. Part of that is what services the administration at the university provides. So we do have a counselor on campus, and health practitioners on campus for that aspect, of counseling. At the same time, I do feel the burden of it myself as well in my individual professional practice. I do. This is why I'm very loud in talking about the intersections of religion and queerness, because a lot of times you just haven't seen a role model in your life who does come from a religious background and does believe in queerness, right? Believe in sort of, recognize the humanity of queer folks and recognizes the compatibility of the two realms. And so that is why I'm very loud in my own work. And I've seen around me as well, a lot of times students from similar backgrounds, like Muslim backgrounds or conservative Christian backgrounds, come to me and they say, well, we always were struggling with the idea of a homophobic God, which is why we love to be spiritual, spiritual. We want that space, that community to be spiritual, and yet we could never have that because it's so violent. And I go to church here because there aren't many mosques, etc., and I do partake in all religious, from all the realms, and I do experience that as well. A lot of times that space, even if spiritual, can be so violent. So part of my work is to create spaces such as the training that I'm conducting right now to train future peace builders in making spaces more queer inclusive, making religious spaces as well more queer inclusive. And I think that is part of what we all do here, all the professors. But in particular, I think my work, it does involve, and part of why I wear this headscarf also is so people from within this tradition or otherwise can recognize, oh, here's a person who's coming from within this tradition, and she does recognize that it's okay to be queer. And I've had this conversation very openly, and I've cried multiple times with students, because they would cry saying, I never thought it would be okay. Like I always, because it's a soul crushing thing to think. I'd be crying right now to think that you're something that you hold so dear to yourself, which is the realm of spirituality, religion. God is just this it's a binding idea basically. And so to think that that is not for you, that you will be rejected by what you consider the highest, the most spiritual entity, the most like divine entity in the universe, is soul crushing. And so for me, I think I take a lot of responsibility in my personal life to spread that awareness to people, that it's okay to be gay, to be queer, it's okay to be that, and God loves you the way you are. Even if my understanding of God is different from theirs, and even if I believe in something else, or just a higher entity, or just I'm God, but I do recognize the power of saying to students. And I think that's where it connects with the question of the previous student as well, that we are, through our conversations in classrooms and outside of those, I think changing a lot of it and supporting students as well. Like going to the Pride Parade with Muslim and Christian students who are coming from very conservative backgrounds, I think that is for them very radical as well. And for me too. But yeah, I do know that a lot more can be done. I think a lot more systematic support can be provided. I do see the need for that, and I think we are working towards it. But yeah, we're all working as much as we can in our capacity to support students with these ideas. Yeah. I
Thank you
don't know
very
if I
much.
answer your question thoroughly, but
You answered a lot of questions that we didn't ask, but that's okay. Thank you. Right? Sometimes you just have
thank
to
you.
speak and people listen.
Was that?
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Rosia? Good.
Ariela, you're still here. Welcome back.
Okay, so thank you so much for this very, very important topic for this group. They're very young. They are actually in what I call the eye of the hurricane. They are in the arena, so they need to hear this and to spread the word as well. So
Thank you so much.
This is
Thank you
exciting
for
time.
No, thank you for inviting me. I think the questions have given me so much energy. I thank you. I was almost like tired from the whole day, but just hearing these questions, thank you for asking those really lovely, intense questions. And they've given me something to think about as well. I'm not even saying this as a cliche. But I hope some of you, decide to stay in touch. I can leave my email address here in case you want to reach out as well in relation to anything really, like if you're interested in the programs, if you want to speak further as well for support, I'm here. Okay, thank you for sharing, Ariela. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing because we had a few people, in the beginning, Dr. Rashid asked, you guys' backgrounds, and you answered with a very wide range of professions. And I just think this talk, everybody, the last person who stepped up said, you just talk and people listen. And I agree. I think having somebody like Dr. Rashid give this type of talk shows us that they're really at the heart of what peace building is. It's not that it just applies to people who studied gender or who studied international law or who studied, environmental sustainability. or business, or, you can be, a counselor and a mechanic and borders and customs, personnel person, a nurse, etc. And all of these people have an active role to play in creating, what Dr. Rashid talked about, this space where beyond what we think, we are working to make sure that everybody else is okay, so that we are all okay. And I just think that that doesn't really have a profession. And so I really encourage those of you who are passionate about what Dr. Rashid said and the types of things that she said, which I think it speaks to all of us. I'm a UP's graduate. I obviously am very biased and I'm not very, objective. I love UP's. It changed my life. It's the best, the best program. I encourage everybody to come to UP's, but really, if these are things that you're passionate about, go to our website, look at the programs. We have short programs. Not everything requires you to move to Costa Rica, but I really encourage you guys to be a part of the conversation. And if this kind of stuff is exciting for you guys to talk about and makes you feel hope about the world, which is what we all need to have right now, really reach out and contact us. And we would love to have you guys enrich our academic community with your different backgrounds. It's at UP's, that's an asset. And so I don't like people to walk away with the idea that this is just for like hippies who study international relations and,
It's for them too. For them too. Hippies, please don't feel left out.
But it's also for all of you. And I really like to encourage people to think about it like that. We are all responsible for what happens next. And it doesn't really matter what our backgrounds are. So thank you guys so much for being interested in making UP's part of your trip to Costa Rica.
Can we take some group picture or something? I really love
you guys
this.
all pose behind the camera and then we'll take
Yes, I can see people coming there.
Yeah, if you guys can all stand there so we can take a picture of the screen, that would be awesome. And if somebody with a phone could take a picture of the group live and send it to us, that would be great as well.
Yeah, and I want to thank you guys also for participating. I designed the program with Niagara, and I'm very happy. I have done studies in UP's. I agree with Ariela completely. It's a very, very amazing education. And thank you so much for having these students have you guys, even if it's virtual and we're all kind of tired of virtual things, but it was
I know,
the
I
only way
wish
we
this
could
was
do
in
it.
person. Like, look at those lovely faces there. Like, I wish this was in person. Look at them. Okay,
Yes. Pressure them to bring you to UP's next time.
Yes, we'll try to do it better, but this time, in this trip, we really couldn't do it. It was impossible.
Okay, who's taking the screenshot? So
I tried, but my computer is very questionable. So
okay, let's just smile. So I'll take a screenshot. Okay, I think I took one and it worked. And someone with a phone there can take it.
Yes, if somebody can take it with a real camera, that would be great. I got one too.
Sorry, we're muted.
Yes, you guys are muted. There you go.
You were ready.
There's a t-shirt coming in.
Perfect.
You don't need that.
Oh, we don't need
that. Really don't need that in mind.
Can you see them?
Okay, my shirt's coming off. I did want to say that I was a little disappointed. I didn't see our country of Canada on the list for participating in the University of Peace. So we might have to make some noise when we get home.
That would be amazing. You guys deserve that scholarship. Make it happen.
Raise hell in Niagara.
It was so lovely to meet you guys. You guys have a great rest of your trip.
Have a
and
good dinner.
Yeah.
You know, this has
Thank you.
taken up a lot of your good evening, but hopefully it was nice.
Thank you guys.
Hope I can see some of you later at some
Yes,
point.
love
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you
Bye
so
to
much.
see you.
Bye.
Gabriela, thank you so much for organizing this. It was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.